Good morning, good evening, and and afternoon. I think that's what I normally say. This is Ray Orsini, and this is MSP Community Live. Joining me is a new face, new to me, not new to you guys. How you doing, my friend?
I am doing fantastic. How are you?
No complaints whatsoever, besides my iPad that won't keep playing in audio twice, because that's how technology works, right?
Well,
There
your
we
first
go.
issue is it's an Apple product. So there you go, fixed it.
No arguments there. And
Uh,
going further down the path, because I use iPads and MacBooks, even though I'm Android PC. Um, my home PC, this is not my home PC. My home PC is going away in favor of a Mac Studio next week. Um, Not sure how I feel about that, but we'll see how that goes. So I take it you're a PC guy through and through.
oh yeah, 100%. Although Macs do have their purpose. I'm not a complete hater on them. I did graphic design for a brief moment in my life, and it is infinitely better on a Mac, for sure. Plus, they do look cool. I mean, it's hard to
I mean,
knock that.
so I have a tiny amount of experience with production and some of the other stuff. Um, and so, believe it or not, sound routing, we were talking about this on the Discord actually. Sound routing is easier on PC for many, many reasons. And it has to do with it's Meraki versus Cisco, for example,
Yep.
right? It's because they do all the magic for you, it takes away a lot of the control for what you need to do sometimes. There's always workarounds, but it's a little challenging. I actually use it because the Mac laptops are probably the best hardware, performance, price, battery
Yeah.
life for the size, right? That was what got me the first one. It was in 2021. I was looking for a powerful Windows PC and couldn't find one with the same specs. It was under £7. And I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm good with that.
My
I'm done carrying giant laptops.
my
So,
What always got me, and this was back in my Best Buy days, way back in the days, you'd had somebody come in looking for a laptop, and you go, well, what are you going to use it for? Because realistically,
right.
unless you're name brand loyal, they're all the same damn thing. They're all the same
They're all the
components. Like,
same damn
oh, I
thing.
just need to do some word processing and browse Facebook and, whatever, like just your normal stuff. It's like, cool, any of these will work. Here's a $400
Yeah.
Dell, HP, etc. No, I want the
Is this called the internet?
$1,200
We'll
Mac.
do it
I'm
all.
like,
Well,
like you could
it's
buy
free.
three three computers for that price. Ugh.
I mean, obviously, I'm not going to say anything against that because there's no need for any of this. This could be in
Ugh.
a beige box and would be just as effective,
Yep.
but it's pretty. So
Yep. It is.
I get it. I
Ugh.
get it. You know what else is pretty? All these MSP comments, also some not so pretty. Some of these threads on
Yes.
Reddit. I don't know. I'm
Uh,
trying to segue, dude.
hey, it was. I liked it. I was there with you. Yeah. Let's
I
let's bring up
appreciate it.
our let's bring up our first one and see if it's pretty or not.
Yeah. And hello to everybody in the chat. I see Danny, Dean. Dean's doing we'll get the link up. I got to share with Danny. But Dean's going to be doing demo days on channel program right after this episode, 12 o'clock. So inviting everybody watching this, go support Dean and Helped and all those people. We'll get the link in the chat in a little bit. Or Dean, if you want to, I'll grab it from Discord. All right, Josh, you recommended this one first. Why this one? What's the story behind this one?
Yeah, the story behind this one. So reading through real quick, how do you help reduce work fatigue for employees? So, a couple weeks ago, Matt and I covered how you prevent yourself from burning out. So this is kind of a continuation on that. If you're in a manager role or an owner role, how do you reduce fatigue for your employees that might not be doing it for themselves?
And so, why did you pick this? What about this stood out to you?
This one stood out to me because I mean, I think it would be a good, obviously a good discussion topic, but it'd just be interesting to hear from you, I guess, from obviously you or people in manager roles, like, hey, if you have an employee who you're noticing being burnt out and they're not necessarily doing the things that they need to do, or if it's like, hey, you're doing great, you're overachieving, you're doing all this stuff, but at what expense? At what point do you step in? And then what kind of things do you do, in your back in your MSP days, or not even the MSP? I mean, what are some things you do to reduce fatigue for your employees in your organization? Because if you have everyone just nose to the grindstone, I mean, then now you're going to have high turnover rates, and no one's going to want to work for you, and et cetera, et cetera.
Oh yeah. And I apologize. I know you work at Centrix. I don't. Do you manage any staff at Centrix? I know you have technical role, but
Um,
Anyone?
Sort of. It's like a weird hybrid. I don't have any direct reports currently, but like I'm in a leadership role. I will have direct
Okay.
reports once it's a little more built out. However, I've general manager of a Buffalo Wild Wings,
Yeah.
manager of a call center, another manager role somewhere. I forget, but plenty of management experience, and although I don't have any direct reports, I'm still in a leadership role within our organization. So.
Well, that's the reason I asked, because it's we've all been the employee, right? We've all been
Yep.
the subject of whatever management decides this is what's best for the company. So we've all been affected by that side. And as much as I've been an owner for a long time. At OIT, I just celebrated 13 or 14 years. It's 13 because of the LLC conversion, but
Yep.
it's actually 14. But I've been an owner of companies for 20 something, they're almost 30 years. So the reason I say that is because there is a blindness that happens to management sometimes when you forget what it's like to be affected. And so before I even get into my personal feelings on this, I will say the most important thing you can do as a manager, as an owner, as anybody in leadership, and tell me if you disagree, but the most important thing you do is talk to your staff and see
Yeah.
what they want to do. You know what I mean? We come up with the ideas, but the truth of the matter is it affects them.
Yeah.
So they should have input. Um,
No, I mean,
is that
100%. They're the ones
how do you
doing the
approach that? Right.
yeah, they're the ones doing the day in and day out of the job, right? And I'm thinking back to
Mm,
like my restaurant times, and that was the key, is just getting to know each person. And that is an industry that
yeah.
has a high turnover rate. I could be the
Oh yeah.
best GM, the best owner ever, and it's still going to have a high turnover rate. But going into the MSP, or back in my call center days, my biggest thing was removing not distractions, but trying to set the employee up for success the best as possible, right? If there is a
Right.
hurdle, if
Right.
there's something in the way that they can't do their job, if there's an annoyance, how can I take care of that so they can do their job, right? And make them happier. And obviously, yeah, getting to know the person on a personal level, figuring out how they tick, that's all table stakes, really. I mean,
Oh
everyone
yeah.
should be
Yeah.
doing that. But as far as, again, if if there's a we got to figure out if there's a reason why an employee is working 60-hour days. Are we
Mm,
understaffed? Is there a process that needs to be redefined? Is there something that we're not doing right? But I mean, or is it just, hey, this happens from time to time, because in the tech industry it does unfortunately happen. So but yeah, it comes down to communication, right? And
oh
it's
yeah.
just a different skill to have in a technical role. If you're a tech manager, right, you're no longer have the technical abilities. Now you need to manage people. So
So and I agree 100%. And actually, I want to bring up Dean's comment because Dean says it perfectly. You don't have to have direct reports to be a leader and influence the crap out of your team. 11 out of 10, Josh, I would let you lead me. Um, removing the funny part, he's absolutely right. I agree 1,000%. I mean, look at the Discord, right? You've taken a leadership role in the Discord, in the MMN Discord, and you've provided your own input. And I don't think anybody would say you had underlings at the MMN Discord. But you've actually you've made a difference, and I think that leadership can be taught at any stage. So getting to the question, I just did actually. I will find a link to it. Maybe put it in the show notes afterward. I did an interview with Dave Sobel on Business of Tech because I'm a huge proponent of flexible work schedules, 4-day work weeks, unlimited PTO, all things that scare the shit out of owners and leaders, honestly, right? Because if you're a service business, you need people in the seats in front of the clients when they need to have you there, especially when you're. Dean's asking for a job after the demo days at 1 o'clock, then you're good. No. But like, that's one of the things, like treating people. And actually Dean had said it when he worked here, treating people as a whole person versus just they work here, right? You have to
yep,
acknowledge, I've always felt that unless you're somebody that has a financial stake in the company, I mean, ownership stake, distribution, dividend, whatever you get, financial stake on performance, unless you have that, the only people that signed up to think about this 24/7 are those people,
yep,
right? Everybody else, it's a job and service of your personal life, that we're passionate, that we want to do things greatly, that we want to make an impact on the world, that we want to help other people, that we want to be awesome, that we want to maybe be the best in our fields. Abso-freaking-lutely, without question. However, you also have your family, right? You have your kid, you have like we have this shit comes up, right?
Yep.
Like, and that has to be part of life. And so any employer that doesn't recognize that, they're never going to sit down and wonder, how do you reduce work fatigue for employees?
Yep.
So from the employee side, the best thing I can say to employees is interview your bosses and ask this question during the interview process. What is their plan? I've approached it with a crap ton of benefits and perks and pushing time off and making sure the managers are taught to tell the staff, keep an eye out for when they get burned out, because the staff are the last ones to step up and say, hey, I'm struggling today, I can't do it. Teach the managers how to identify it and make the open space for them to take that time off, normalize it, make it okay. I say all the time, we're a major league team, but when you're here, I want you 100%. If you're not
Yep.
100%, take time off. I'll still pay you. It's fine. Take time off. I don't want you screwing up my winning season. I don't want you making a mistake because you were trying to be nice and help out. Like, the road to hell is paved with good intentions, right? We've heard that a million times. And so it's kind of the same thing here. So what about you? How do you reduce, what are some of your go-to tricks for reducing fatigue when you spot it, when you see that employee that's kind of a little burnt out, or maybe even yourself? How do you address that?
I mean, the first thing, going back to your first point, is just literally ask them and have that open conversation with them. And just, hey, I'm noticing this. You don't have to pry. It's like, hey, is there something at work? Is there something personal? Like, I noticed that you're not at the level you normally are, and what can I do to help you out? And can be, you can pour your heart out to me, or you can just say, hey, it's none of my business, but at the end of the day, I'm here to help you. So let me know, work with you, and then figure out ways. The other thing too is just how we're set up is documentation, fixed procedures. So if you need to take a time off, even if you're in a critical role, it's documented enough to where someone can step in and knows what to do. So that way, you can take the time off. And, if you're on PTO or something and you're asking an email or a Teams, responding to the person, hey, you're on PTO, get off of there. I know that one of the first days I took off, I still attended a meeting, and my boss was like, get the hell off of here, or I'm like disabling your account until your PTO is over. So yeah, having the time to recharge and having
Yeah.
those, just the conversations, it's the biggest thing. Or even just noticing it, right? One of the things my boss did at my last job was,
Shit,
hey,
Kelvin's
it's,
watching.
we got, yeah, we look professional here, branding.
Branding.
But if it was like a Thursday afternoon at 2 or 3 or something, and I had my stuff done and there's nothing coming up, he'd literally be like, hey, just go outside, like take the afternoon off. Your stuff will be here tomorrow. So just preemptively just telling, hey, go touch grass, because that for every week that you can work 34 hours or 32 hours in the line of our business, there's going to be weeks where you're working 50 hours or so. It's just the nature of how it goes. So recognizing, hey, when there's some downtime to get away from the screen and, go touch some grass or relax a little bit.
So let me ask you, a lot of the so yes, we're in agreement on asking, but also, do you find sometimes the employees aren't as open to identifying when they're frustrated or when they're like burnt out or whatever? Because I found, like, as a manager, and talking to these employees, a lot of times you kind of coax it out of them.
Mhm.
Like, you don't need to tell me every personal detail of your life, but tell me, how you're being affected. I don't need to know what's affecting you. Tell me how you're being affected, and we'll work around it. If you
Yep.
can tell me why, better. But there's a boundary there. So how do you do that? How do you coax that out of them? How have you been comfortable with that?
I mean, I'm going back to the call center days, is like, using the one-on-one and trying to build the personal relationship and trying to make it, I mean, obviously you're not going to be best friends with the person, but just trying to iterate the transparent and open communication and sharing a part of, if I share first, then typically the person is going to be a little more comfortable, sharing with them. But sometimes it does come out of the blue, right? You have a good performer, what you think is a good employee, and everything's great. And then the next week they put in their notice and you're like, what the heck? What could I have done differently? How many times does that
I
happen, right?
I
Like,
just had this happen not too far ago, not too long ago, like 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. One of our team members left. He did explain it to me, and I'll be honest, I thought he was full of shit every single time he explained it to me. It wasn't until like the third time, and I'm like, dude, you can tell me it's okay. Did I do
yeah,
something or what's going on? And he was explaining it a little more detail, and then I was like, okay, that actually makes sense. It wasn't, it wasn't me, but like, and it's been me plenty of times, trust me. But you do that, right? You do that as a
yeah.
leader. You sit there and why did they leave? Did I misidentify them when I was interviewing? Did I hire the wrong person? Did I take somebody who was good and not
Yep.
manage them properly to get the best success out of them? Did we not have the resources? Were they a piece of shit and I didn't notice? Like all of these things, you go
Well,
through every single
and
exit.
it goes through, you want to have the right people in the right seat, but there's a third part to that, and that third part is at the right time, right? They can be the right person in the right seat for years, but then something changes, whether your business or whether in their personal life, where unfortunately there's just no longer, it's no longer the right time, and it's just, it's something that happens, and you move on and hope the best for both parties.
Absolutely. So I want to bring it one more time. Demo days, channel programs, demo days. Um, That's my LinkedIn link because that's all I could really find. But Daniel put it in the chat as well. It has Dean's post to the actual channel program event. So go check that out. All right, Josh, the next story you picked, thank you, Danny. We can move on. The next story you picked is, let's see what we got here. I am completely unprepared because when somebody like Josh comes on the stream, I just let him do all the work. So the
All
next
right.
story is it too late to start an IT career in my early 30s? I like that.
Yeah.
All right, Josh, run us through this one.
So this one has an interesting story. He's 32 months clean from a brutal meth addiction, and he's looking at going back into IT. So first off, congrats to OP on overcoming that. That is not an easy thing to do. Again, going back to my restaurant days, unfortunately, drug use was very common in there.
Oh yeah,
So to see somebody overcome that is fantastic. And yeah,
and being
absolutely
comfortable
IT.
enough to
So
share it, right? Like that's
mhm,
not a that's not
that's
a small
huge.
thing. There's
Yep.
a stigma there. So good for him. Good for them. Yep.
So yeah, I mean, is 30s too late to get into IT, or is your 30s too late to do anything, right? And the answer is no. There's the best time to plant a tree was yesterday, but the second best time to plant it is right now. So yeah, absolutely. Start your paths, and that's the beauty of the MSP side. That's what MSPs are good at. If you get an MSP, you're exposed to so many different networks, so many different things. You can get that experience very quickly, and move toward whatever your preferred career is with that, because you're exposed to so many different things.
It's funny. My dad used to tell me there's never a right time to buy a house. Then it's never enough time, or there's never the right time to get married. There's never the right time to have a kid. Um, and my adulthood, what I realized that distilled down to was the most major life changes that impact you are generally, it's never the right time for any of those, but those also have the biggest impact on your life,
Yep.
right? Changing a career, buying a house, starting a family, getting married, blah blah blah. And so generally speaking, maybe I shouldn't bring the marriage up given the divorce rates. I'm happily married, so what we call it. uh but the truism hold the same. Usually you're better off at the end of it, and usually you're better off on the outcome. So it is scary every single time. I don't care if you're dropping 50 grand on a tiny apartment, 500 grand on a nice house. It doesn't matter. It's scary. um Getting married, having a kid, hell, having a kid's more expensive than a house. um but but if you're actually going to put your time into it, absolutely worth it. I agree. My thing is, when you're in your 30s, you have less time than when you're in your 20s. When you're in your 40s, you have less time than when you're in your 30s. Not that you're going to die and there's an expiration mark, but I just realized you're starting up the career ladder again in a brand new profession. You don't get the benefit of, this is my experience and I worked 5 years here and worked 5 years there. So, and as you get older, it becomes a little harder to learn shit. I'll be very honest. I am not the smartest technologist in this company at the moment. Haven't been for quite a while. I have my areas of expertise, but you know what I mean? If I'm the one, configuring switches and routers, and we have a problem. Um, so realize you're going to have those challenges. You're probably going to have to dedicate a little bit more time to studying or whatever you need to do. But I don't think it's ever too late. We have doctors that start going to medical school in their 40s, and that's 6-7 years you're dedicating. You're not going to be doing anything till you're 50. I don't know. Are
My,
you
my
seeing that? Yeah.
my wife right now is oh boy, she's 30, and she's just going back to finish her LPN, her nursing, because
Awesome.
it just
Yeah.
did. I mean, it didn't work out. Like we had kids, and with my career and stuff like that. But she's going back, and it's such a difference now, because you're a little more mature. You're taking it a little more seriously, and she's doing way better in school. Yeah, I do
You
need
got
to
caught.
answer that. We've been together since 2009. Okay, so like when you ask me how long we've been married, I'm like,
Exactly. Yeah.
2016. It's been
We're
forever. So
2007, so I tell my
yeah.
wife, I'm like, in the last 50 or 60 years, like, it's close enough. It's
uh, exactly. So, and I did that with my schooling too. I didn't go to college right out of high school. I waited a year, and then I was going to go into business management, and I lasted a year, and I'm like, this is dumb, because I had to take all my stupid prerequisites that had nothing to do with business management, and I was like, I'm just going to go work and become a manager and use my experience rather than a piece of paper. But then I got into the IT field. And then after a couple of years in that, I was like, well, I don't want to be paying money for a piece of paper I don't have. So I might as well get the piece of paper. And I went back and I finished a 2-year degree for whatever, computer specialist. And it was like I was at a much more mature level, and like took school way more seriously than I did the first time around, and did very well with it. So I think there's a maturity aspect as well, but you still have life experience you can bring. And I mean, I've said this plenty of times before, especially MSP side. If you have people skills, you can work at an MSP. I can teach anybody what buttons to push on a keyboard, but it's very hard to teach soft skills. So if that's something you have and you can bring to the table, you're going to go far in a very short amount of time.
It's funny because I feel the same way. And it's funny because when we hire for technicians, especially tier ones, here, most of you guys know I run a VoIP. One of my companies is a VoIP company, but we hire a lot of MSP techs as VoIP providers. I like MSP technicians because they've been through the ringer. They've dealt with every manner of pissed off client. They've had to deal with a variety of different technologies and had to figure it out and context switch to be able to get back to and still keep all that handled to be able to give the best customer service. That is not everybody. You can't take somebody from Corp IT and just say, go be an MSP help desk without any training and expect good results. It's not going to happen. But the biggest gripe I get back is, well, I have 5 years experience in IT. I've never worked in VoIP. I'm like, so you weren't speaking English until you were taught English. That's fine. We're going to teach you. You know what I mean? That's not a scary thing to me. That's an exciting thing to me. And eventually, they go through all the training and stuff and they come out ahead, of course. Garrett brings up a perfect point. We have a gentleman. I don't think he'd be offended at me saying this. He is the oldest tech on the tech team. He is a tier 1 by choice. He is, I believe, Garrett, help me out. Steven's in his 40s. He might even be a little bit older than me, I believe. I'm 45. And we routinely get the most positive CSAT surveys from him. The other techs get them too. The other staff gets them too. He's 54. That's how, he's 54. And he is getting, and I looked at him, and I'll be honest, I talked to him. He was not the most experienced technologist I ever talked to in my entire life. He's in his 50s, so he's not like us in our 20s where, doing the whole, technology is my life and I can't do anything else because I'm so passionate about, like, he has a life now, right? Like he has a different perspective, but this dude kills it. Like it was to the point where, like, I say I could teach anything. And when we interviewed him, I did have some concerns, and I've talked to him about it. Like it's important to be transparent so he knows what, how he succeeds. And Dean's a dick, who's the oldest guy in the porting team. So whatchamacallit? So, bringing him on, we trained him up as we expected to do, and he got it. He had his challenge, whatever, he got it. And then he just became this rock star on the tech team that nobody expected. It has been phenomenal to watch. Um, and that's the other thing I want to bring up too. As opposed to being worried about starting late, realize you have some superpowers too. You have the
Mhm.
perspective of age. You have the perspective of, in your 20s, you kind of get riled up a little faster than you do in your 30s. Your 30s, you can pause a little bit, take a beat, and have some perspective. In your 30s, generally speaking, what learning styles work for you and what doesn't. So if you're going to join a new career, find the learning style between LinkedIn Learning or any of the video courses or any of the YouTube videos or any of the, RTFM, right? Like you can do whatever format you want. It's out there. Go do some cyber drain and other CTFs to go to practice your skills. And actually, before moving off this, we should mention something you're doing to educate. I know I didn't give Danny any notice, but if you give me I'll grab the link from the events while you talk about it.
Yeah. So one thing that I'm passionate about is I'm more on the cybersecurity side now because that's my current passion. But is IR training, incident response training, and knowing what to do. So a couple months ago, I found out of the blue this gentleman Bob Miller is running something called IR Game. And I joined it last minute. I emailed him like, "Hey, I didn't think I was going to make it, but I can make it. Please let me in." And immediately, so it was him and Matt Lee were kind of the ones hosting it, and it was unlike any other tabletop, any other thing that I've played before, because it was more of a real life simulation. I've done backdoors and breaches, I've done tabletop simulations, but this one was, hey,
That's another one.
you're in a
Backdoors and
pressure
breaches
cooker,
is
yeah.
great. But yeah.
You're in a pressure
Go ahead.
cooker, and it's more operations rather than deep technical. You don't need to have a technical background. Right? Anybody can play this. In fact, it's actually better if you're like a C-level or a leadership role to see this. And immediately afterwards, I was like, "Bob, this is fantastic. I love this. I'm very passionate about this. How can I help?" And he's like, "Hey, you did awesome. I love your input. Come join." So now we kind of there's a smaller group of us here. We're brainstorming, trying to make it better and doing cool things. But what we do is the last Friday of every month, we have a free game. It's not hosted by, not vendor backed, not we're not selling you anything. You just come in here and we do keep it to a smaller group. So the June one is sold out, but we try to keep it between 20 to 30 people because we want to have smaller groups to focus on discussions. Plus we have a limited amount of facilitators who are trying to drive it forward, and it's hard to do that with a large group. But it is really cool. It is unlike anything else you've ever seen. So I highly recommend looking for the July one. And there is they did one with the empath guy.
He's having some internet issues. No worries. But while he's doing that, we're going to bring up, like he said, the June one sold out, or the June one's completely booked. Keep an eye on the July one. On the MMN Discord, we talk about it all the time. So if you're not on the MMN Discord, go ahead and go ahead and sign up, or go ahead and log in, because that way it's besides following Josh, the fastest way to get the next time it comes up. So. And if they want to learn about this, if they want to maybe become a facilitator, should they talk to you on Discord, or where should they reach out to you?
You reach out to me anywhere, LinkedIn, Discord, whatever you can find me, and I'll get you in contact with Bob, and we'll see what we can do. But yeah, I'm
Awesome.
like Ray. I mean, anywhere you see me, I'm available. So
That's
I'm
true.
a little bit everywhere.
I love that.
Community. But I think the next we'll talk about transition, right? Go ahead.
Yeah. No, you were doing the same
uh,
thing I was going to do. Go for it.
So yeah, go into transition, right? So we talk about, hey, I'm 30. How can I get into a new job? So this next story is, well, you got the job at the MSP, you're hired, great. Now what? So this is the story. He's feeling lost. Hey, he's 30, and he started 10 days ago at a small local MSP, and he started as a level 1 help desk. And he's like, hey, what do I need to do? How can I grow? So I have an answer for this. I can tell you what I did. But what's your answer here? I'll give it to you first here.
So, I look at this stuff and I say, and first of all, I got to give you credit for, I don't know if you meant to do this, or like the transition from I'm starting and I'm 30 to, I'm feeling lost and I'm 30. Beautiful, by the way. I love the symmetry.
Oh yeah. It was on purpose.
That's Yeah. So, you know, I see this and it kills me because we've seen that sysadmin is almost worse than MSP, right? You see a lot of MSP posts where they're burnt out. You see the sysadmin post and it's like someone call 988 or something like, and I'm not saying that lightly. Like there's a lot of disgruntled posts, and that breaks my heart because there's so many options. Like this is an employee friendly environment at the moment. Um, so it kills me. So this guy's asking, current situation, I plan on shadowing as much as I can my HQ department. What are things I should look for first? Procedural, client rapport, take notes on literally everything. I'm going to go back to non-technical. I'm going to go back to what Josh said. I'm going to go back to the soft skill thing. Whether you have it or not is not entirely relevant. It's easier if you have it because it's harder to teach than tech, zero question. But it's still a skill that needs to be improved over time. I'm comfortable speaking publicly. Well, I'm as comfortable as I'm ever going to get speaking publicly, but it is what it is. Not to say that I'm actually comfortable, but practice gets you that level. Same thing with customer experience. I would start and go look at. I would start looking at other tickets, and to me, I look for the stuff nobody else is looking for. Everybody wants to go tier 2. Everybody wants to go tier 3. Everybody wants to go engineering. Everybody wants to go security. Everybody wants to go DevOps. Whoop de frickin' do. Do the thing nobody else is looking at. Go start looking at tickets. Start looking. What are the themes? What can we automate? What are the themes we're seeing from clients? Where, see, I don't know if I was kicked off or he was, but that works. But like, what are the themes we're seeing for recurring issues? What are the things that may be preventable? What are the things that are not? Because those are things typically nobody else is looking at unless you have a very mature service delivery team. And instead of going to the next place that the employer already has set up, I'd look to create your own value. That way you're not competing with anybody. There's a million ways to do that. What about you?
That's insane because that's exactly kind of what I did at my last MSP job. So going back to my story was, GM of a restaurant, and I loved it. I was really good at it, but I wanted some time where I wasn't living at the restaurant or on my phone because it's a 80-hour-a-week job. And it was like, I want to go back to IT. One of my best friends worked at an MSP. So I went back there and I was out of the game for a couple of 3, maybe 2, 3 years, but it was like riding a bike. I was like, hey, I already have 7, 8 years of sysadmin stuff. But it was like, okay, well, I haven't done this yet. So the first, I would say 2, 3 weeks is I just shadowed. I took, if I couldn't do it, I would at least take the call, do the soft skills, document what I could, and then, ask for help. Or I would just sit and watch, or I would take, hey, I know how to do this. Like, let me do this. And then I'll pass it off. Like, server example, right? Like I didn't know how to do like the FSMO roles and all that stuff at the time, but I could unbox it. I could put it together. I could put in a operating system disk, load it, run the updates, et cetera, et cetera. So took what I did. And then I did exactly what you just said. I noticed, hey, no one's really doing Microsoft 365 things. We have a cloud person who's selling those, but we don't really have a tech who's like specialized on those. So I went deep down the rabbit hole, learned all there is to know about that, became the cloud person. And that literally was like, I had kind of my own role. Like I was the cloud solutions architect at this MSP because no one was doing it. There was a need, and I saw the need and basically kind of blazed my own trail and grew out that portion of it. So like you said, find what isn't being done, shadow, and then just document, right? If the things aren't documented, if you document the procedure, you go through it. Yeah, it's boring, but now you know it, like the back of your hand.
Yeah, that's and if anybody's keeping score at home, the recurring theme, besides men in their 30s, the recurring theme is ask the questions first or be curious, go look, not do first, go look.
Mm-hmm.
And the stuff will come out to you. Like you said, I'm sure you didn't have in your head, I'm going to go find this thing. You identified something. Normally
Yeah.
it just comes up to you. It's not like it's not even an intentional thing. It's because you don't know what you're looking for. You just know you're looking for something, and
Yeah.
eventually it pops.
Mm-hmm.
And for those that love the psychobabble stuff, that's your subconscious qualifying things. But it still works regardless. And that's literally every business that's ever been created ever, right? There's a market need. I've created my value, hopefully. And you're doing the same. There's no reason an employee can't do the same. And that's why I love stuff like this, because A lot of employees don't see it that way. I'm not a manager, so I'm not a leader. I'm not a business owner. I'm not a salesperson, so I don't need to create value. I just need to do my job. And then they wonder why they're not moving forward. Well, because they're not doing anything to move forward, right? That's the challenge. That creativity and that immersion, right? Whether, like I was talking about, immersing myself in tickets or whatever for the other gentleman, or immersing yourself in how the company operates or whatever it happens to be. Doing that, paying attention leads to the questions, leads to the answers, and opens the opportunities. And I honestly, I can't think of anywhere in life that doesn't apply to
Yep.
tell the truth. All right, we said this joking, but I think we're gonna do it. Yeah, we're gonna take advantage. Matt Topper's not on with us today, so we have no ConnectWise representation, even though he never brings up ConnectWise unless I do. But talking about switching RMM.
We're finally doing it. We joke about it every time. We're talking about the right RMM tool. And the right RMM tool that everyone should be using is...
Oh, yeah. Yeah, the newest one with all the AI, with like, you should absolutely dump every other RMM to go for this one because it's what everybody's using. The one we recommend is not a damn thing. I don't want to talk about that. We both agreed we're not going to talk about which RMM is best.
Because
I'll be honest, I don't care.
Well, and the answer is there is no best one, because it's up to your company to decide what the best one is. And how you do that is you have your procedures, you have your framework, you have what you want to do, whether you follow ITIL or whatever, like you need to align your business needs and say, hey, this is how we want to do it. And then you start looking at the tools to allow you to do the business that you want to do. So maybe for you that is Automate, maybe it's End Central, maybe it's Ninja, maybe it's VSA, whatever, right? But if
it doesn't matter,
if you just take the tool and you say, hey, well, this is a tool we have and we're going to align our business needs to that tool. Well, if that tool goes away, if it changes, if it doesn't update, if it gets compromised, well, now what, right? You've solely relied on this tool. So when do you change it? And that answer is when it doesn't meet your business needs or your processes anymore. I'll give a fun story about a solution I was using for security. It's not an RMM. It was a SIM XDR ABCDEFGER tool that promised, hey, it's doing all of these things. It's gathering all these logs. It's doing monitoring. It's doing compliance and all this stuff. I'm like, hey, this sounds really cool. And got into the dashboard. I'm like, this looks really cool, and everything is doing vulnerability. And then working with it. And then I was like, okay, I'm noticing some efficiency differences here. Like I can do this a little bit better. Can you guys do this? And they would say yes. And then it never happened. Other things, they would say, hey, they would do this, and then it didn't happen. I had to continually remind them, hey, I need this report. I need this report for this client. They're supposed to have it this month, and now it's 4 months later, and I didn't get it. And eventually, as I started digging in more and more, and holding them accountable, they weren't holding their end up of the bargain over, right? So like, okay, well, I'm going to find something that does, because I have a business need, I have a business process. This is how I want to do it. And the way I wanted to do it was different from the way that the tool did it. So I found the tool that does, and now we're in a great place.
And that's kind of, and that's, the approach we're taking of why and when, not what. So much more important, when we do, and we've heard it talked about as vendor review, vendor due diligence, blah blah blah. But one of our processes is, as we review items for potential change, and we do this yearly, by the way, with each of our stacks. We don't switch the stack; we do review them each year, not to change immediately, but so we know what the landscape is.
Mm-hmm.
So we know if there's a new feature somewhere that we would like in our current platform, can we get that done, or can we look at something else? Again, not changing, just being aware of the situation, asking the questions. So one of the things that we do is we'll go through the potential companies we're looking at, even if we don't know how to qualify it yet, and we'll start pulling their feature comparisons. And we'll build a big spreadsheet with all of those items, with all the price points and all the features, and then start identifying which features are most important to us. Because a lot of times you don't realize it until it's said out loud for you, right? You know, how many times have you seen a blank canvas and you're like, what do I do with this? And then Bob Ross
Yep.
paints some fluffy trees and you're like, whoa. You know what I mean? It seems so obvious. Um, so, you know, we do that. And we do that when we're reviewing something new in a space. Low code, no code apps is a perfect example, right? There's a million options there. I'm not referring to RPA. I'm talking about, you know, actual interface creation and all that stuff. And the feature matrix, the easiest way to do it. But it starts off, and then you build your list of requirements. This person here says they want something that can handle Mac and OS. They run about 2K endpoints. They individually support premium startup clients. They know what clients they're supporting. So ideally, they know what kind of hardware they're supporting, right? This is not a media company. This is not a video company. This is not fintech, right? Those are different things. They have different needs. And anybody who's ever done fintech or clinical research, my hat's off to you, because that's a special kind of pain I don't miss. For example, they're looking for on-premises. I'll leave my grammar OCD alone on the title, but they're looking for on-premises. I personally, my opinion is I don't want any RMM that's not fully cloud anymore. That's my personal opinion. For me,
Yep.
we're a fully distributed company. I don't like the attack surface of an on-premises system. And to me, I want to have those as sparingly as humanly possible. But that's me. That's what works for me. This person wants something on premises, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's just know your qualifiers, right?
Yep.
So in looking at that, not talking about features, I don't give a shit about features, but when you're looking at qualifiers for what ideal things you want your RMM to have that are important to you, what important things do you think? Well, it could be features if you want. What important elements are in the RMM that you need for your company? And again, skip the brands. Nobody gives a shit.
I mean, you have the things that are table stake, like the remote monitoring and the management. So it needs to be able to monitor, to send the alerts. But for us, I mean, particularly, we do have our own kind of custom ITSM platform that's kind of like a PSA or a ticketing system. So for us, the number one qualifier is I need to be able to connect to an API. And if I can't connect to your system, then I can't use it. We were in the process of looking for a QBR tool, and again, I'm not naming any vendors, but there was one I reached out to, and they didn't connect to anything that we had. There was nothing with API or anything, and I literally ended the call in 5 minutes. I'm like, hey, your guys' software, your product looks amazing. It has all these features, but I can't use it. So unfortunately, like, it doesn't qualify. The same thing going back to the security tool I talked about. When I was looking for a new one, I was like, hey, these are my qualifiers. This is what I'm looking for as far as like the SOC, the SIM solution, all this stuff. And if I go in on Reddit and I posted, hey, what's the best MDR? What's the best SOC? I can get answers. There's going to be companies that come up. And if I would have went with them, it didn't work. Like I have
But
friends
should I
at a
use
company
SentinelOne or
that
Huntress? I need to know.
does fantastic, but it didn't work for me. And I found one that worked for my processes because, like you said, I had the qualifiers, right? So come up with what you need and how you want it to work. And then, find the one that works, that checks off the most boxes for those qualifiers.
I mean, that makes perfect sense to me, right? But it comes back to that list of qualifiers. It doesn't work if you don't know what you're looking for. So yeah, I mean, I want to give some breathing room because I'm going to assume that people are going to want to go get a drink, maybe refill their coffee, go use the facilities before they get ready for demo days with Helt and Dean Trumpulis and David Son. So before we take off, Josh, you're always doing stuff, dude. You were helping us out in the chat yesterday with the Pitch It webinar. You're constantly in Discord. You're running these IR scenarios. You're doing a million things. What are you doing next, my friend?
So the next thing coming up is going to be, we haven't had a peer group in the MMN Discord for a while because of conferences and holidays. So Monday at noon Central, we have the Diamond Dogs peer groups. So come, please join that. We'll hang out for an hour, talk about whatever you guys want to talk about. We can get into what's the best RMM tool, or we can talk about what you're doing on the 4th of July. It doesn't matter. It's just a hangout space. So that
Did
would
we
be
give you one of these yet?
Doing.
The Diamond Dog pins?
I don't think I have one.
We had them made for GeekCon, and I had the staff. I asked Logan to ship it out. It's been crazy, but I had asked Logan to ship one out for you because you're the founder of the Diamond Dogs. So I thought it would be kind
Well,
of
I
a cool
appreciate
thing.
it.
Yeah, man.
That'd be awesome. So yeah, that's the next thing I got coming up. But yeah, I mean, like I love the community, and I'm at the point now where I would say the community has helped me get where I am in the MSP world, and I'm just hoping to give back as much as I can and help grow it.
Awesome. Well, Josh, thank you so much for all you do. I do appreciate you're one of the unsung heroes in the Discord, and I definitely appreciate you in the IT community. See you on Tech Degenerates all the time. I know you're an MSP geek, and obviously an MMN Discord, and many other places. I think I first met you in what MRU Discord.
Yep.
Back in the day. So yeah. So if you want to go check Josh out, I'm in all of those exact same places because we all are. Come meet us up and hit us up on the MMN Discord. We have lots of fun. We have lots of cool talks. Maybe we'll stream a future IR events in the stage. Definitely worth joining for the Diamond Dogs alone. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining this episode of MSP Community Live, where we talk about all the topics that are important to you in your MSP communities. I'm Ray Orsini. This is Josh Hohbein, right? That's the proper pronunciation?
Hohbein, but no one gets it right.
Hohbein.
So it's fine.
Okay. Yeah, I would never would have gotten that right. And Josh Hohbein. Until next time, take care of yourselves and each other.
This has been a broadcast of the MSP Media Network.